cutting edge of anomaly research. You are about to experience The Evidence with your host, 3D pioneer and image analyst with Mars X3D, D.W. Gannett.
Hey there, pull up a chair for episode number 68 of The Evidence. This is your buddy Dave over at Mars X3D. And if you're new to the channel, this is a full stereoscopic 3D channel. You have to learn X3D viewing. Very simple. You'll find it down in the links below. Most people learn it in 2 minutes. No equipment needed. There are no glasses you have to put on. There's no further investment. Anybody can do it, absent eye pathologies. Anyway, we've got a lot in store for you today, and I just wanted to say that, sometimes I incur the displeasure of my colleagues because they say that I debunk things. I'm not interested in debunking or making anybody feel bad or tearing anybody down. What I'm interested in is the truth. Now, there are more than enough anomalies out there on the surface of Mars so that if even 1% are true, my gosh, think of the implications. But let's not fool ourselves or delude ourselves with pareidolia and blurry images and fanciful thinking and undisciplined research and all the things that seem to plague this community. That's why the majority of our finds are non-fractal anomalies. Non-fractal simply meaning the mathematics that indicate intelligent agency. So that's what we focus on, and if something doesn't quite meet the bar, well, I'm going to tell you that. And if that upsets anybody, I'm sorry. I'd rather know the truth. I don't want to exist in a miasma of delusion, okay? So anyway, thanks for stopping by. We're going to get right to it. Maureen Marcus is a longtime researcher who's made some great finds over the years. This is one she found in 1454 that she conjectures to be a piece of mining equipment. As we get closer, we can clearly see the right angle and what seems to be 2 rectangular holes in the lower left corner. In order to see this better, we'll need to zoom into the pixel breakup point. I lightened up the shadows and we can see that our holes become 2 rectangular boxes catching the sunlight. Immediately to their right, there is indeed a hole passing through this uniformly thick plate. On the right side, we see 2 rectangular boxes or recessed areas, both of which have 2 knobs inside. Of course, there's that nice, clean right angle, and that right side is resting on another perfectly rectangular block. The white line you see to the right is a stitching error where the images come together. So, is this mining equipment? That might be a stretch, but it is a good, clean, non-fractal find by Ms. Marcus. These 2 sols, 1452 and 1454, have some really interesting anomalies in them. I ran across this the other day, a flat plate underneath what looks like a rock over there in the yellow target. Back there inside the green target is something first pointed out by Martian Graney. Let's take a quick look at that before we move on. This is an impressive find. This certainly seems artificial to me, and of course there's just no way of telling what it is exactly. Click on the link in the description if you'd like to take a more detailed look at it yourself. So, we have a perfectly rectangular plate of even thickness with a fossilized sewing machine on top. Just kidding. But I believe a case could be made for this being a mud fossil of some kind of mechanical device. And as far as I can tell, it's mounted on the plate. If it's a rock that fell on the plate, then that's some pretty stout stone to not crack or break off, especially as thin as that plate is, which leads me to believe it's made of metal. This one reminded me of something I ran across in Sol 1432 last year. Look at the regular notches going down the left side and the radius on the front right corner. And of course it's got that perfectly even thickness throughout, which really isn't the way slabs of rock behave at all. at least here on Earth. This one was pointed out by Scott Waring just recently, with a small army of other researchers, of course. It's hard to miss it, skylined on the ridge like that. It reminds me of a goat made to look like a sphinx. We're all tempted to label this as a sculpture of some kind. It's just natural for our minds to go there, and I'm willing to write it off as just imagination, except for a couple of things. One is that it appears to be carved to fit the top of a hollow enclosure with a cross-like opening. See it there on the left? That seems to be kind of a convenient coincidence. And two, take a look at the block right at the base next to the opening. It appears to be quite rectangular, and there are at least 3 circular depressions spaced along the side facing us. It's clearly non-fractal, in my opinion, and its presence smack up against this so-called Sphinx gate doubles down on the anomaly aspect. This jumble of rocks is just downslope from the Sphinx gate, making it really easy to find. Now, I know a bunch of you are going to insist that the object sticking up downhill to the left is some kind of gun or some other kind of device. I've taken a good look at it, and in my opinion, it's just eroded rock. So let's move on. This entire small area is tantalizing, in my opinion. For example, those 3 black rocks or structures in the back are kind of interesting. The one on the left has a nice triangular opening fitting right into the top of the triangle. Funny how the wind does things like that. The one in the middle seems to have an evenly spaced bevel running up the left side and an evenly thick rim running up the right. The one on the right is just plain weird, although you can see a box-like cube on the right side of it. Are you ready for things to look a little bit different? When you rotate the image back to level, it certainly begins to look a lot more purposeful, doesn't it? The one in the middle definitely looks like a pyramidal structure, and the pieces flanking it have indistinct carvings on them. But what else do we notice? What about this circular piece? It's all broken up and collapsed. See the points around the perimeter? This reminds me of the dancing Shiva we find in India. I'm not saying that's what it is, only that it seems to be similar in some respects. There's definitely appearing to be items within the circle that may have been part of the original when it was standing. How about this thing? With pareidolia in full swing, could it be the top half of a bust lying buried in the sand? And these pieces right here, with those 2 holes and their rounded lips, were these part of an ancient fountain that went with the statue or bust lying in front? Then you have these 2 walls coming together to form a 90-degree angle, but it looks like that corner was split open by whatever catastrophe overtook the planet. Of course, this is all just rather undisciplined speculation, but it's also entirely fair to speculate on what we find up there on the red planet. Just 20 minutes exploring this ruin in person would provide some real answers, along with a whole bunch more questions. This is a Gigapan my buddy TJ did of the Bonestell region, and you'll notice that the title says Waring et al. Now, for my Iowa friends, this does not mean that Scott Waring is a cannibal and he consumed a fella named Al. Reminds me of the cannibal that came home for dinner and said, "Oh no, honey, not baked beings again." Sorry, I couldn't resist that. Et al. Is shorthand for the Latin phrase et alia, which simply means and others. This is a classic find, reported by any number of researchers, so I'm giving credit to Scott for putting it up on his website, while at the same time recognizing that a bunch of you are either already familiar with it or claim it as your own find. But as far as I know, nobody has done it in X3D before. So here we have the famous book. And you gotta admit, it really does look like a book. You can even see the pages and the embossed cover, if indeed that's what it is. And here's a book to compare it to. Pretty close, I'd say. Certain people proclaim this to be a Bible, and that it therefore proves there's religion among alien races. Look, it's already a speculative assumption saying this is a book. It could be a really uniquely eroded rock, for all we know. But then to go on and proclaim that they know the contents of the book and what those contents mean on a broader scale, well, that's coloring outside the lines a little too much for my taste. I really hope it hasn't been colored in yet. Hey, thanks for stopping by today and for being part of our team, and a special shout out to the cross-eyed explorers. I'm sure glad you're out there. Have you got something you'd like me to take a look at? Just email it to me, a link and a photograph. I'll see what I can do. And hey, if you saw something you liked, give me a thumbs up. That's the only pay I get. This is your buddy Dave, over Mars X3D. Be well.